This is StormReel, a podcast about the intersection of people and weather, hosted by storm chasers Jeremy Hamann and me, Gabe Cox.
Welcome to StormReel, the podcast about the intersection of people and weather. I'm your host, Jeremy Hamann, joined by my fellow host, Gabe Cox. Hey, Gabe, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Happy to be here on another episode.
Yes, absolutely. And we have a really wonderful guest for y'all today. But up top, Gabe, you texted me this a couple days ago, and you were like, okay, we have something to talk about on the show. And I had seen it hit headlines as well. And so pretty crazy news from the World Meteorological Organization. They just confirmed what, Gabe? What did they confirm?
The world's longest lightning strike ever. On record.
Crazy.
And it happened back in 2017. So the researchers going over archived satellite data, and they discovered a single electrical discharge from a line of thunderstorms that traveled 515 miles, crossed over Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, and Missouri. Which is insane.
Yeah. All in 7 seconds, by the way.
Within 7 seconds, yeah.
I didn't confirm this number. I just ran it, but that's 264,000 miles an hour. So that's pretty bananas.
Golly, that's insane.
That's pretty bonkers. But.
So apparently most of it was cloud to cloud, so contained within the cloud, but it did branch off, and it produced 64 separate ground strikes along that journey from a single bolt. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. It was from a big old system, like lined out system going through that area, which is famous for those types of storms. Just really nuts, nuts.
Bonkers. I guess the previous record was 477 miles, which still blows my mind.
Yeah.
I was unaware of that record.
Yeah. And I was reading too the previous or the longest, I should say, time frame of a lightning strike. So this one was 7 seconds. The longest lightning strike time-wise took place in Argentina, and it was 17 seconds of lightning striking.
Gosh.
Which I can't even comprehend.
Yeah,
like 17 seconds of lightning occurring. That's like a fireworks finale or something. That's just nuts.
Just a strobe light, yeah.
Yeah, really, really crazy.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, but shout out to our meteorologists looking at satellite information and collecting this data and keeping us updated with this information. It's really, really, really cool. We'll link the World Meteorological Organization article in the show notes for you to take a look at. But let's bring in our guest. I'm sure he has something to say about big old lightning strikes. Gabe Garfield is a seasoned storm chaser from Norman, Oklahoma, with over 2 decades of meteorological experience, having witnessed over 200 storms, including 2 EF5s. Gabe is a well-known figure in the field, featured on the Discovery Channel's Storm Chasers, which is a classic. He holds both a bachelor's and master's in meteorology, and he seamlessly combines academic knowledge with real-world experience. Beyond storm chasing, Gabe passionately shares his insights through social media, aiming to make meteorology accessible to all. Welcome to StormReel, Gabe Garfield.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Gabe. Glad to be on it.
Awesome. So great
to have you here. Always a pleasure to have another Gabe on the show.
Yeah, Gabe Sandwich.
We got the Gabe Sandwich going on.
I've got to say, when you were saying Gabe earlier, Jeremy, I was like about ready to answer.
I know, we got to...
Maybe we
got to hold myself back.
Some nicknames, maybe?
Yeah.
Garfield.
Yeah, there you go. That'll work.
That's awesome. Well, as we were sharing about that long lightning strike, did you have any thoughts or comments about that amazing measurement?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Can't even imagine. Did you say it was 17 seconds or something? Was that like repeat lightning strike or something like that in the same spot? I'm just kind of curious what that was.
So this one was 7 seconds.
7 seconds. Excuse me.
And traveled, the single bolt traveled over 550, or I guess around 515 miles. So branching throughout. Yeah.
That is wild. Yeah.
Insane.
No, that's insane. It actually reminds me of some of the crazier storms that I've seen in my, I guess, more than 25 years of chasing now. One that really comes to mind is the May 24th, 2011 El Reno Piedmont storm. That was a big, F5 producing monster. It was, on the ground, the tornado was for about 90 minutes, I think.
Wow.
An hour and a half, and maybe longer, actually. Anyway, mile wide, absolutely huge wedge tornado. But on our way to intercept that storm, we were coming in from the north and kind of not really core punching, but getting out ahead of it. And I just remember the lightning was so incredible. Like the brilliance was just something that I haven't seen since. But I don't know if it could have produced that long of a lightning stroke. But that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of these storms in the plains, I remember, Jeremy, it was actually your and my first chase. Coming home that night and just seeing prolific lightning producing storms. And, I grew up in New England, so didn't see any of that. But even in Florida, there was nothing that compared to these massive supercells on the plains and the just insane amount of lightning they produced. It's pretty amazing. And you can't really do it justice, telling someone about it. You just got to see it. It's pretty insane to see firsthand.
Absolutely. I think about all the time, like hundreds of years in the past, what did people think, what meaning did they ascribe to, these phenomenon? Obviously, there's stories and mythologies and things like that, of course, but that sort of thing really boggles my mind. We have all this like incredible science now and, satellite imagery and ability to capture this data on a high level, but it still hasn't taken the romance out of it too, because it's still really, really special to get to experience. Crazy lightning. It's so fun. It's so great. Well, Gabe, a question we like to ask on this podcast of our guests who are interested in weather and severe weather. What was like the inciting incident for you in your life that activated that latent gene that you were born with to become fascinated with severe weather?
That's a great question. And it really all started in 1990 in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I was a young guy at that point, and I remember the particular day that year where we had this high risk of severe weather, and the television folks were saying there's going to be a big tornado outbreak today. And I just remember being fascinated by how exciting it was. And that evening after T-ball practice, I remember I came home and the tornado warnings were scrolling across the screen. Gary England was on telling people to take cover somewhere. And then all the guys in my neighborhood were outside trying to find what was outside and looking for the tornado. And I just remember thinking, this is thrilling. And it turned out that a tornado formed in my hometown, Stillwater, and went across the north side of town, about a mile away from where I lived. And we took shelter at the university, Oklahoma State University is in Stillwater. And I was just absolutely amazed by that whole event, that whole sequence. And so that inspired me actually to reach out to Gary England, because he's the only meteorologist I knew at the time. And I really wanted to know more about tornadoes. And he had this like traveling weather show where he would, bring some people and bring some tornado video, and he would show it to the audience and tell them some things about storm safety and so forth. And I just knew that, this was before YouTube. That was the only way I was going to watch tornado videos. So I wrote him a note. I wrote him, snail mail, sent him a letter, and asked him that when he was going to come to Stillwater. And he actually replied to me. And, 3 weeks later, I got a reply from him, and he sent this really nice note, signed it and everything, and said, "Dear Gabe, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to make it to Stillwater this year because we don't have it in our list. But, next year we're going to try to make it out. But until then, here's a book that I wrote, and it's got, all these pictures. I hope you enjoy it. And
awesome.
So it was called Those Terrible Twisters and the Weather of Oklahoma. He signed that book as well. And it was about 120 pages of, color photos and, great stories about tornadoes. And I just literally read that thing to shreds. And it just sparked this absolute passion for tornadoes.
Oh, that's incredible.
Amazing.
I mean,
what an awesome origin story, all around, and having a legend pour into you.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Gary England, who recently passed away in June of 2025. What an incredible voice and influence just over, TV meteorology in general.
Absolutely. And he actually had the opportunity to thank him for that very important moment in my life. Actually, it was a Storm Chaser convention. I think one of the last ones, 2014, maybe somewhere around that time frame. I actually got to meet Gary and thank him for putting me on this course, which definitely grateful to him. And he was, a heck of a guy. And really, I think he did so much more for so many other people too.
Absolutely. Yeah. What was his response when you told him that you were just a little kid that got this book from him?
I honestly don't remember too much about it. I don't think he was, overwhelmed or anything like that. So that's nice. I think my guess is that, as I recall from the experience, is that he probably had a lot of stories like that were told to him. Mm-hmm. And that was just the kind of person he was. He was so generous with his time that I think he impacted so many people. It was probably not a terribly unique story because he did inspire a lot of folks there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So you're a young kid in Stillwater, you get this book, you have this experience, all these pieces are come together, like the synapses are firing, the memories are being made. You go to school for meteorology. Like, what was that path like? Cause we have a lot of young folks who are students listen to this podcast. And we always love to ask folks who like, what was the educational journey and motivation for you?
Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to be a meteorologist, and that was definitely firmed up. If it wasn't with that particular event in Stillwater, it was firmed up with the May 3rd, 1999 outbreak. After that happened my sophomore year in high school, and I was like, wow, I've got to become a meteorologist. This is where it ends. Wow. And so I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And, you go into meteorology and it's a lot of math, it's a lot of physics and that sort of thing. And to be honest with you, I wasn't particularly interested in like all the credits that I needed to get to the meteorology, right? So you have like all this stuff like physics that you have to take the requisites and then the calculus and so forth. And I didn't do badly, but it was not something I was terribly interested in. And then when I got to my junior year, which is when the real fun starts in meteorology at Oklahoma, that's when I started really applying myself. And so it was interesting, like, calculus just by itself had like zero interest for me. But when you applied it to like the equations of motion, all of a sudden, like, I'm all in, let's go. And so I actually became quite a better student there and ended up graduating with a bachelor's in meteorology in 2005. And then not long after that, ended up going for my master's in meteorology. And that was an even better experience, as it was even more like refined towards my tornado interest, and learned so much there, just so all over. But one of the key memories that I have of that was working with a guy named Dr. Brian Fiedler, who is, pretty unknown, I would say, in like chasing circles or whatever. But, in the research community, he was pretty well known. MIT guy, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, probably too smart for his own good. He couldn't really communicate his brilliance very well. But one thing he did very well was tornado science. Just an absolute genius on that account. He did stuff with like maximum wind speeds and tornadoes, and it was just an absolutely fascinating thesis topic. And we actually used a model, this like tornado model that had all these fancy parameterizations is what they call them in the model, that we could kind of simulate real world tornadoes. And our goal was to figure out how fast the wind speeds in tornadoes can be. And it was just an absolutely thrilling experience. And I learned a lot. And one of the things, I'll just go ahead and spoil it for myself and just say that the biggest thing I learned is that the strongest winds and tornadoes are not actually going around the tornado like, you would think. They're actually in the vertical. So, in fact, most research, and this is, still theoretical to some degree because it's really hard to get a radar inside a tornado and point upwards. Right. But it turns out that the wind speeds in the vertical may be more than 2 times stronger than the winds in the horizontal. Wow. So if you think about it, you got your May 3rd, you've got your Reno, you've got Greensburg or whatever. What was the one that was in Greenfield? Was it Iowa? The one that happened last year? Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Greenfield. Yeah, it was. Anyway, it had winds of 330 miles per hour or something like that in the horizontal. Think about that multiplied by 2.
Golly. That's wild.
Oh my!
Is that actually an amazing segue into something we're going to bring up later, but it's worth bringing up now? Is you just actually released a blog post, kind of along those lines, and talking about the difference between horizontal and vertical winds, and also about tornado strength and how there's mounting evidence and consensus that tornadoes in general are much stronger than we give them credit for. And that there are more EF4 and EF5 tornadoes happening than we may have realized previously. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that new research was, and kind of, what does that mean for, our understanding of tornadoes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that research primarily is referring to a paper written in 2021 by Josh Foreman and others. And in that paper, basically they compared the Doppler on wheels observations of tornadoes with the actual F-scale ratings at the same location. So, as most of your listeners probably know, the Doppler on wheels are, essentially radars on trucks, and they roam the plains looking for tornadoes, and they scan those tornadoes from afar to get a horizontal wind speed in a tornado. And they were able to, using, some techniques to basically create an apples to apples comparison to the degree that they could, were able to determine that the wind speeds in the average tornado were like at least, I think, 135, maybe 140 miles per hour, meaning that like your average tornado is like almost an F3. And so when you think about like the distribution of tornado ratings, let's say from the National Weather Service, you've got this huge database, right, of tornadoes that they've surveyed, something, 1950, something and onward. And in that, database, I don't remember exactly what the percentage of, F3 and greater tornadoes is, but it's something like, I want to say it's like 20% maybe. And then when you think about the fact that the real tornadoes that we're looking at, we're observing the wind speeds and that are actually EF3 and greater, that means that really we're underestimating our tornado intensity by a large margin. In fact, I think what Moorman came to the conclusion of was that we were underrating tornadoes, or we are underrating tornadoes with the EF scale by a category and a half. So if you can think of like an EF3, if you have an EF3, on average, it's probably an EF 4.5, basically.
Wow.
And, that is kind of wild when you really think about that. And I think that has implications. And I wrote a newsletter recently about the implications that has for storm chasers, because as you guys know, storm chasers, we all are interested in having our own experiences, but one experience that, is becoming more common, and perhaps as a result of, social media influence, is getting close to tornadoes. Honestly, it's an awesome place to be. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there, Gabe. And
a couple times. Yeah.
A couple times, once or twice. It's fun. It's exciting. But the reality is that when you're that close, you really are rolling the dice a little bit on whether or not you're going to get hit by the tornado, right? Because, these things can shift or grow larger or what have you, or you might not be able to see it in the rain or something like that. Now, most of the time, up to now, we've seen folks that do get hit by tornadoes, which happens, seems like every season somebody gets hit, maybe a little bit of a graze or whatever. They make it out okay. Maybe some scratches, maybe their car's totaled, whatever. That sounds bad enough, right? Should be enough to say, let's not do that. But I think at this point, we just don't have a significant number of, a substantial number of those cases to be able to say whether that kind of chasing is actually safe. Meaning that, like, is that something that you can realistically roll the dice on, or not roll the dice on, realistically do without, basically putting yourself in danger. And so that's kind of what the newsletter was about. And then it kind of, dovetailed into some new research on the wind speeds required to loft cars.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We'll link to that in our show notes. It's called Lofted Cars Reveal Extreme Tornado Intensities. I'm just curious, like your take, as a meteorologist, a person who studied it, it's kind of a hot topic in, the weather community, storm chasing community, about the EF scale itself and like how it's measured and, whether we need to like expand it or change it. Like what's your take on the EF scale, how it stands now and where it needs to go?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, honestly, it's probably not been an improvement from the original F scale is what the research is showing. It seems that Ted Fujita had some good ideas. And like in terms of wind speeds, like you look at the old F scale, for example, for EF4 tornadoes, and he was predicting, I think it was like 200 to 260 maybe was the original F scale. And the research is starting to show that. And so I think it's unfortunate, but I think by trying to kind of improve on things, it made it kind of a little bit worse, which not the direction you want to go. I'm not sure for all the reasons of that. I don't think there's anyone to blame or anything like that, but I think we're kind of coming to the conclusion that it needs some improvement. And I think the people who, originally or helped to put together the EF scale understand that as well. And they're working on, my understanding is a new scale that will kind of improve some of these measurements and also include some new damage indicators, which hopefully, fingers crossed, that will deal with, episodes like the El Reno tornado, right? In 2013, where you have a tornado that's clearly capable of pretty significant violent damage. And, obviously it's really not hitting much when it maxes out. It was, producing winds in excess of 300 miles per hour, basically at ground level. But there was really nothing out there to hit. So my hope is that, the new scale will account for that to some degree. And maybe, there'll be some damage indicators that we can kind of make the data set that we have a little bit more robust. But I'm not a huge EF scale guy, in terms of like, it doesn't bother me if a tornado is not rated EF5 or whatever. Right. And, it's not an argument that really interests me, but I just think that for the science to move forward, we need to kind of acknowledge that there are, some things that need to be worked on. I think that's already happened. And, I trust that the people who are working on it are going to do a good job.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's such an interesting thing to think about and talk about. And it has such like the EF scale generally, and, like hurricane rating scales too, like it's the most easy thing to like latch on to, as a public, and it should be, right? Because it kind of gives people a snapshot or a glimpse of, what could happen, what has happened. But that's fascinating. Yeah, it does look like it as of 2022, like they're updating the EF scale. So that'll be super interesting when they roll that out. But yeah, science takes time also. Good science.
It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've mentioned a couple storms already that have made an impact on you that you've gotten close to and near. One storm in particular, like our Gabe had met you, but I didn't know of you, Gabe, until I saw a video of yours, because I was, like a storm interested person looking up storms that were important to me and see if there's footage online. But in particular, you posted a video about a year ago of the May 22nd, 2004 Hallam, Nebraska F4. That storm, Gabe, was kind of like my activating moment in my life. I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, spent a ton of time in the country south of Lincoln, which is where this storm took place. I had a ton of friends who lived out in the country and who went to Norris High School, which the tornado hit. And so that was like driving through that damage after the fact. I was like 16 at the time. And that really showed me like the power of weather. And obviously it was the widest tornado ever recorded at the time, but your footage is incredible for the time. I feel like y'all really captured like the genesis of the tornado and the crazy meso that it had. But can you tell us about that day? Obviously I'm putting two and two together, but you were still in college. And chasing. What was that like? Yeah, no, that was quite an experience. And yeah, Lincoln's a great area, by the way. That's a good place to be from. We started the day in Norman, Oklahoma, and actually kind of started the day a little late in the morning. I believe it was like 11 a.m. departure or something like that. And we really were kind of behind the eight ball and trying to get up there. And on the way, and this is quite a story, we ended up getting a couple of traffic tickets. And I won't go into all the details on the traffic tickets, but I think in total we were probably delayed. I got one too, by the way. Mine was $166.50. I still remember this because that was the price of admission to a great atmospheric show.
The date is May 22nd, 2004, near the town of, I can't remember, Fairfield or Fairview, Nebraska. Heading west on 136, went through Beatrice, got a ticket, going to pay a lot of money. Hopefully this video will pay more.
It delayed us long enough to not bypass the Hallam cell because let me just kind of set the stage a little bit. So there were storms that were forming further west, right? This Hallam is in the southeast part of the state. There were storms that were initially forming kind of where the upper low was moving into. The lift had arrived. Some storms had gone up. I don't remember the names of the towns, but, south central Nebraska, there were, some stovepipes out there. It was, we're hearing the reports of them and we're like, oh my gosh, we've driven 6 hours to see nothing. We've gotten 2 traffic tickets. And all of a sudden, about 15 miles ahead of us, the heavens just erupted. It was like a nuclear bomb went off. And like, I have only seen storms develop that fast and that explosively. Maybe one more time, maybe 2 more times. I would say May 3rd, 1999 was one of the other times, and maybe May 29th, 2004. So which was a little bit after that, a week later. I mean, just absolutely nuclear updraft. And it's like, we're in business. This is great, And so we started chasing that, and it was like one of those deals where it's kind of like a high-based supercell. You can kind of see a little bit of a wall cloud starting to develop, but not much to write home about in the first, say, 20 or 30 minutes. And then all of a sudden, it hits some sort of boundary. I'm not really sure. Maybe it was the outflow boundary or whatever it was, but the thing just dropped. Probably 3,000 feet in about 3 minutes. And as soon as that base dropped, it started cranking so hard. The rotation was super intense near a town called Hebron or Hebron. I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, Hebron.
Hebron.
Baby, spin! How did that happen?
How did that happen so fast?
Holy cow!
Look at that rotation, too.
That got its act together and fast.
Still rotating like a top. This thing went from high base nothing to surface based, oh my goodness, in less than 15 minutes. It was absolutely incredible. Put down a tornado briefly about 10 minutes ago. It's trying to do it again from the same wall cloud. That's a dust. Oh, is there a tornado in there? It's filled with dust, man. Look at that. Is there a tornado in there? It's rotating rapidly.
And so we followed the storm off towards another small town. I can't remember the name of the town exactly, but there was another small town that had the first tornado of the day formed near, and it was a big dusty wedge. And honestly, it was very frustrating because we couldn't see it because it's so dusty. And then once we got to the town of Dakin, that's when all the craziness started. We were in the town. Sirens are going, and we're just kind of repositioning, going east, trying to get a handle on the storm. And all of a sudden we look up, and to our left, just a little to the north of the road as we're going east, and there's this beautiful white cone funnel that's just cranking down like as fast as you can imagine. And we're like, where did this come out of? It was like basically out of one of those, how in Twister, the original movie, like those tornadoes emerge from like overcast skies. You know what I'm talking about? It's like,
Yeah.
that doesn't look like a mesocyclone. That's like, that's like, I'm gone home for Christmas kind of sky, and it wasn't very like promising. And that's why we were shocked. It was that kind of sky that it came out of. And then what was wild is that the tornado formed very, very quickly, went from the cone to a wedge, and then like the wall cloud and stuff formed around it. So like it kind of almost formed out of nothing.
We have a road east in a mile, but we don't. This road ends in dead end. Oh my gosh! Let's get close to this sucker. Let's get close. This is a big puppy. Holy cow! This is a big puppy. We are talking major tornado here. Major tornado.
Gabe, look at all the dust kicking up to our west.
Yeah. We might. Oh my goodness. What a tube! What a tube!
And then, of course, as you saw in the video, Jeremy, is like got this big tornado cyclone and big dusty wedge forms out of that. And we chased that for, maybe. I guess it was probably 90 minutes, maybe almost close to 2 hours, and had numerous encounters with it. I think one of the ones that I'll always remember was when we were just, I think, northeast of Hallam. Didn't realize the town had been hit, and we were kind of frustrated because we couldn't get a good view in the lightning to try to see the tornado that we knew was probably there because we had heard it on the radio. And we got up to it from the south, kind of coming in towards the RFT, the RFT rear flank downdraft. It goes around the tornado and has really strong winds on the south side of the tornado. Well, that hit us as the tornado was kind of coming to a close, and the winds picked up to probably 60, 70 miles per hour in the darkness. That's all we could see was our headlights, and across the headlights was bits of wood and insulation, all that had been just ripped apart in Hallam was coming across our headlights. And we turntailed and went back to the south and called it a night. So that was kind of the untold aspect of that storm, was the after dark experience that we had. But yeah, definitely a storm to remember.
Wow. At what moment did you realize, and maybe it was, the next day, but when did you realize that you guys had witnessed something historic?
Gosh, it was probably the next day. I don't remember exactly, but once we found out the town had been hit, I think up to that point it was just like it was a good chase day, and we were happy about that. But then finding out that this tornado had hit the town, and then of course once you have the damage survey come out and it's 2.5 miles wide, you're like, are you kidding me? New American record, and we saw this thing? Are you kidding me? And that was definitely the moment that was cemented.
Hey, dear listener, storm chasing and podcasting both cost money. And now that Gabe and I are back making podcasts regularly, we have a new way that you can support our show. If you look in the show notes, you'll see a link to be able to subscribe to our podcast. This will cost you $5 a month, and you will be rewarded with early access to our podcasts. You'll get each episode 2 days early as a $5 a month subscriber, and we will read your name on the podcast. This support means the world to us. We take our time out of our regular lives to make these episodes, and so just a little extra support would really, really mean the world to us. Thank you so much for listening and considering subscribing. Gosh, yeah, if you look at the storm track, it reaches its widest point as it hit Hallam. Like it widened at that point to reach out and hit that little town. Just wild. I remember the atmosphere that day was just crazy. It was just like crackling. It was like fireworks were going off in the air, but it was just like just the atmosphere was just so nuts. And on your video, the alert messaging is going off on the radio. I remember that super distinctly too. And just what a crazy storm. So you were in college then, like where were you kind of in like your chase career at that point? Like, was this like a pretty fresh experience that you had with your friends, or like where were you at in developing yourself as a chaser at that point?
I love this question because this kind of alludes to some of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing now. So to back up a little bit, so I started chasing kind of seasonally, regularly every season in 2000. And from 2000 to September of 2002, I saw 0 tornadoes. So that is to say, I was terrible at it. And I've actually developed an online storm chasing course to help address that shortfall, because I realized that for a lot of people, it takes a little while to kind of develop the skills to actually find tornadoes regularly. So I've been trying to help folks get that, and some of our folks have done really well with that. So all that to say is that was my experience through a good deal of 2003 too, until I think it was May 4th, 2003, where really things started to pick up. I saw a big high-risk day outbreak in southwest Missouri, and I think eastern Kansas was part of that too. They had the Girard, Kansas F4, and we saw the Pierce City F3. So that was really when it started to change. Mm-hmm. So when you ask about Hallam, what was Hallam and that whole sort of long circuitous story, is that was kind of the beginning of I'm starting to get reasonably good at this. I wasn't great at it. I will say that we were kind of lucky on some level, and we definitely had a lot of busts after that, but it was starting to get like, okay, I'm starting to get a hang of this. I think I'm starting to understand how to chase tornadoes. And of course, as soon as you say that, that's when you start busting. So
totally.
Exactly.
The atmosphere humbles you, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing that, you saw at the time the world's widest tornado. And then you were around on May 31st, 2013 for that record to be broken. Walk us through the El Reno tornado day and what that was like for you.
Yeah. So that was another huge one, obviously, metaphorically and literally, 2.6 mile wide tornado. And, that day started in Norman for me. So I used to work at the National Weather Service office in Norman as a researcher. And I just remember that day, just the sense of dread that everyone had that day. If you were paying attention, you might recall sort of the question of whether there was going to be a high risk, right? That was brought up kind of about midday, and folks on social media were a little bit upset that high risk wasn't going to be issued, and I think it ended up being the decision, or the decision ended up being about storm coverage, right? There wasn't supposed to be enough storms to justify a high. But the parameters were obviously there. Huge instability, huge shear, particularly the low-level shear. And I think that's the thing that caught my eye. Was, you're going to have like Greensburg, Kansas level wind shear, which happened, by the way, at night, F5 tornado. Mm-hmm. You're going to have that during the day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a crazy setup. And I mean, everybody was on guard that day. So we left Norman about 3:00 and we drove out to El Reno like everyone else did, right? Because it was very obvious. You had this sort of boundary intersection just west and southwest of town. You knew where to go. It was one of those days where you might mistake yourself for being a good chaser by going there, because it was just so obvious that it was going to be the place to go. But we waited there and we went to this, I think it was like a Love's gas station, met some other chasers and just kind of hung out. And then, the heavens exploded around, I think it was a little after 4:30 maybe. And then the first, I think 3 storms went up, kind of like one south of I-40, one on I-40, one north of I-40. And of course, as the way it goes with the storms, the southern one ends up being the big guy. Mm-hmm. So we ended up, going towards that, because by that time we kind of knew what was up. So we went down there and, talk about lightning. I mean, that lightning was intense. And I remember very specifically when we were west of El Reno, somewhere near Calumet. I don't remember exactly where, but, the lightning was so crazy that I did not feel comfortable, even outside of the rain, somewhat far away from the storm. I did not feel comfortable taking pictures outside. So I went back into the car. I was like, okay, we're not doing this. And so we went back in the car, and then we went back all the way to El Reno. And I don't really exactly remember the decision making there, but I think it was, we were feeling like, okay, this storm, it's on another level. Like, you just felt it in the air, just the way the atmosphere felt. You know, Jeremy, you talked about that with Hallam. I mean, that's the way I felt with El Reno. I mean, it was like you knew something was up. And so when we got to El Reno, we kind of then went back west towards the storm, hearing reports of a tornado forming near Calumet. And then we got some miles, I think it was southwest of El Reno, where we saw the first tornado from that.
Oh, there it is. Look at that.
I see it.
It's on the ground. Oh, it's huge.
Ginormous.
It's going toward El Reno. Oh, that's huge.
It was like actually a pretty weak tornado, but a fairly large one that we saw just south of I-40. And then what happened next was, basically the stuff of nightmares, right? We ended up going east on, I believe it was Reno Road, if memory serves me. And as we went east, we noticed that this new circulation was forming directly to our north. So this would have been, now this is where the timeline really comes into perfect clarity for me, because I know this timeline pretty well. Around 6:03 p.m., the tornado formed. And it was probably, we had by that time set up tripods. We were just southeast of the tornado, looking to the northwest. Beautiful white tornado. You can see my video online if you care to. And we were, probably about 2.5 miles away from the tornado. It was going to be an awesome view. I was excited. It was going to move just to our north, given a east-northeasterly storm motion, which was what we expected. And wouldn't you know it, the thing started looking like it was moving right to left instead of left to right. And I'm like, what is going on here? And we sort of got the sense that this tornado wasn't ordinary. It started getting these vortices. You've seen the early video from maybe somebody like Reed Timmer, who had some really great video of the vortices within that, and they were spinning so fast. Clearly strong tornado. And I was, completely taken by this whole experience. And my buddy Tim, he's like, man, we gotta get going, because I see this line of chasers headed our way. If we don't get ahead of them, basically we're gonna get stuck. And I was like, okay, yeah, we'll go.
It may be coming towards us, guys.
Again?
Yeah. Okay. It's definitely heading south, guys. We got it. We're gonna have to bail.
All right. God. All right. Close the window.
What you really need to do is move your vehicle to a place that
Good. I can on pavement. I can haul ass.
Be careful about chasers.
I know, but I think we're ahead of them.
Take your tornado precautions.
Hold on, everybody. It's gonna
Watch out.
be
Be careful. Be careful.
I know. I saw those on cars.
So we turned east on Reno, and the tornado's following us down the road. What's going on? And then we go south on this road called Childs Road, and we saw Brandon Sullivan and Brett Wright. If you know those guys, they were on the side of the road. They were filming. They actually got hit like 60 seconds after we saw them. And we're just like, what is going on? This thing is piling southeastward towards us. And we get to the next east-west road south of Reno, and we're continuing to go away from this thing, and we cannot get away from it. It's like, what is going on? Like, we're going 65, 70 miles per hour. My little Hyundai Sonata, by the way, not a great chase car. Don't use that, but I will advise. And we get to Highway 81, and my buddy's like, I think we're good. And I said, I'm not so sure, because at that moment, that was when Highway 81 was when that tornado kind of basically became this, absolute behemoth, that sort of, entire circulation on the ground structure. And what was wild is I remember seeing the wedge on that road that we were just on, and we were looking to the west, and there's even lightning inside the tornado, which was wild. And we can see this whole line of chaser cars going into the funnel. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. People are getting munched by this thing. And I realized we were now in a fight for our lives, essentially. And then when we got to 81, the thing expanded, and I realized that we thought, all the tornado had been on the road. It actually extended probably a mile south of the road. So while we were trying to drive south away from this thing, the entire mesocyclone was planning like just to our southwest, and we were about to get like completely engulfed in this thing.
But I can go before
Dude, you better go freaking fast. Don't even stop. Okay, he's going. Go, go, go. Go, go.
There you go. And everybody.
Oh, God. Keep going.
Come on. Maybe I can go east.
We can go east. Let's get east. Let's get east.
I think this is the road. Yep.
Okay, let's go east now. Go, 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 go. Okay.
Come on, what are you doing?
We're not going to die. We're going to be fine. We're going to be just fine. We're just going to have to keep going. We're good. We're good. Oh, God, I hope everyone's
Hold on,
okay.
everybody.
Okay, be careful. Be careful. Be
It's gonna be
careful.
a little bumpy.
And then we looked to the south, and there were all of these, cars stopped at basically a traffic stop. There was a highway patrolman who had set up a roadblock there for some reason, blocking off the exit to the tornado. And we're like, what can we do? We can't escape the tornado. And I said to my buddy, I was like, just go past them, right? We're just going to go east on the next road. So we get to the next east road. I can't remember the number, but I go east on this road. And wouldn't you know it, there's like this, literally like a garbage truck, like hogging the entire center lane of the road going 25 miles per hour. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're probably going to die here. That's what I was thinking internally. And, so I told him, try to get around. And he actually pulled a maneuver. It was like Dukes of Hazzard. Like there was like a little bit of a road that kind of went one way, and he went around to the left and around the dump truck, and we were able to get past it. And then we drove as fast as we could. And like the wild thing, and this is where it concludes really, is that we were driving and driving, just completely losing our minds. And then we looked over our shoulder, and the tornado wasn't there. It was just gone. And we looked and like, where did it go? And that's when that tornado took the north turn. And unfortunately, that was also what got Twistex. Was that at that point, what saved us was the fact that it stopped moving southeast and immediately curled back to the north.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. What a chase. Yeah.
Crazy day.
And you mentioned to us, you mentioned Twistex and before we started recording, the couple tornado photos behind you. Obviously, this is an audio medium, but can you tell us about one of the photos behind you and the relevance and the meaning there?
So I've got one from Dodge City, Kansas, May 24th, 2016. So big day that most storm chasers know about, just an absolutely epic storm there. So I've got one of my better photos behind me. And then I also have, and this is a pretty special image to me, is a picture of the wedge at Canton Lake in May 24th, 2011. So that was the big outbreak, high risk day. And the reason that is important to me is that the picture was taken by Paul Samaras. And Paul was a friend of mine, and I got to know his mom actually much better than him, unfortunately, because he passed away in the tornado at El Reno. But after the tornado, I had opportunity to really kind of talk with Kathy, Paul's mom, Tim's wife, about what happened in the storm. So I was at the Weather Service at the time doing the damage surveys, had access to all the radar and so forth. And really the value that I provided her, I think, was basically letting her know what kind of storm that Tim and Paul were dealing with that day. Because, I mean, when something tragic like that happens, you wonder, was this something that could have been avoided, right? What happened? That's a very obvious question. So I was able to, come to some conclusions on what happened. And we developed through that, a friendship, not just related to the incident, but just in general. At that time, I think we were all just hurting, honestly, in Oklahoma at that time. For those who lived through that period, it was, we had the May 20th tornado, Moore, Oklahoma, F5, and several friends whose houses were hit. It was just a very emotional time for a lot of folks. And so it was really just a special friendship that I developed with her. And so she sent me this nice picture taken by Paul. And so I have it in a nice place in my house so I can always remember him. And, he had a tremendous knack for photography, by the way, like just an unbelievable photographer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh. I mean, yeah, what a chunk of time in history for that region, and how, I wasn't chasing actively at that time, but I just remember when the El Reno storm happened, and I was just like, wow, this outbreak continues. Like this is unbelievable. The amount of tornadoes, and super strong tornadoes in high populated areas. We like to talk here on the podcast just kind of, you mentioned it a little bit, just kind of the emotional toll of being near powerful storms that obviously hit population centers, and in your experience, having people close to you die and be affected. What has that been like for you in your journey of being a meteorologist and storm chasing? How have you coped and dealt with, and how have you changed as a result of kind of being near storm related tragedy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll say that the storm absolutely changed me. The El Reno storm, it made me less cavalier. I think I was a little bit brazen. I got really close to tornadoes and I didn't mind before then. I think when that happened, I realized that I needed to reevaluate how I chased. And I think in terms of coping, that was actually something that was a process for me, because in all reality, I was pretty traumatized by what happened, right? Because not only what happened at El Reno, but when I was watching more, in 2013, I was 2 miles away watching people's lives get destroyed. I mean, I was watching the tornado when like 7 elementary school kids got killed, and I knew in that moment, like I didn't know that was happening, but I did know something like that was probably happening. And then when you combine that with just how tired everyone was from chasing all the time, and then having your friends die, it was just a lot. And I remember that summer I was actually pretty depressed, to be honest. I was pretty down, and I remember even having a dream where basically, I'll just say it, my mom died in a tornado. A lot of tornado things going on, and it was like, this is like, in the dream I like find her after the tornado, and I just remember the feeling of panic waking up from that, and realizing that was what Kathy was experiencing pretty much every day. And that changed me. And I don't say that just to kind of get into the nitty gritty and just kind of put stuff out there, but like really it helped me to understand, I think from an emotional perspective, what people go through, right? It's not just for fun. When you're talking about storm chasing, it's a weird hobby, right? We're following these things that kill people, like literally. So I think it's really important, I think, for every storm chaser and every would-be chaser to really try to do as much business as you can to understand and empathize with where people are, and understand that, while you're having a good time, people may be having the worst day of their lives. And that's not saying that there's anything wrong with chasing. I don't think there is, because the tornado is going to happen whether or not you're there, but just to have some sobriety about it, and that's how I view it, at least. I mean, people can do what they want, but I think for me, that's how it really changed me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It just changes. You can't help it. Absolutely. It's kind of what you do going forward from there. Did it change kind of your desire to chase? Has your chasing kind of intensity lessened after that date?
Yeah, that's a good question. It did for a little while, probably for like a year. I think I dropped in my chase desire quite substantially, particularly in 2014. And then 2015, I kind of picked that up. And by 2016, I was back to normal. Now I don't really chase as much because I'm in Tennessee, but it's the bad part about living out in these parts. Not too many tornadoes to chase out in the trees, but no, it definitely affected me for a couple seasons.
Totally. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you obviously have a long history of storm chasing. Like, you have a lot of hard fought lessons. You have learned all sorts of things through blood, sweat, and tears. And I think it was last year you started this blog in an effort to educate new and upcoming storm chasers, and help people to not make the same mistakes that you made, and to help them work through the frustration and just best practices. What was that like for you, and what kind of motivated you to start this blog and start the process of educating storm chasers?
Yeah, great question. It's been something that's been on my mind for some time because I remember, again, the experience that I had early on in chasing where, you spend a lot of time in the early days and a lot of your personal capital, sometimes not attending family events or weddings or things like that. And it, is something that has a high cost, right? It's not something that you can just do willy-nilly most of the time, unless it's your job. And most people don't have it as their job. And so given that, and knowing how long it took me to learn how to actually be successful at chasing, which was like, if I'm really putting a time frame on it, where I was I actually know what I'm doing, probably took me between 5 and 10 years to get reasonably good at chasing. And the thought occurred to me is well, why not give some of that information out, right? I think there's kind of in the chaser community, or at least historically, there has been sort of like a kind of a guardedness about my chase targets. I'm not going to share that. Don't follow me. You do your own thing, right? But I wanted to kind of break that and be a little bit more generous with my knowledge. And that was part of my motivation, was just to give something out that I have. And the other piece is that, quite honestly, being here in East Tennessee, I miss it. I miss it a lot. I miss being out in Oklahoma and being able to leave work and go chase a tornado, which I used to do all the time. And so for me, it's a way to not only help other people, but also to connect with something I love. And so, that's kind of dovetailed into a lot of different things. I told you about the course. And so it's really, it's been fantastic. Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing about it because I'm having a blast, learning a lot of new things. One of the best parts about the newsletter, and you saw this with the most recent one, is that I'm learning a lot of new science. In the process of trying to explain things, I'm kind of digging into the literature, which I used to be in science. So it was something that I enjoyed doing, but now I don't do because that's not part of my profession anymore. Long story there. I won't get into it, but not bad. But it was a way to really reconnect with my meteorological roots.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, give our audience the pitch, the details on the course, and because I'm sure there are some really interested folks listening now. What do you get out of it? How much does it cost? How do they get access to it? Because we want to send some folks your way.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So the course is basically a full comprehensive transformational course. And I think that's the thing to really say about it. It's not designed to just be a bunch of information like you can get on YouTube. The overall goal of the course is to literally give you the skills that I have in chasing. And so I do that primarily through the course, which is about 6 hours of online videos. I outline, essentially all the meteorology that you need to know for chasing storms, nothing more, the equipment you need. And then I get into my own chasing method, right? So I've, over several years, kind of perfected my own way of finding tornadoes, and everybody has their own way, but I have my own sort of checklist that I follow. And it actually, honestly, works reasonably well. I found it's I had never codified it until this point, but I've actually put it in writing. And so you follow that, and then you kind of get into the actual how-to of strategizing where to position yourself in front of storms, falls of chasing, things to watch out for in terms of safety, tornado identification, and then after the tornado, I get into what to do if you encounter damage and debris, what to do about media, just basically the whole list of things that you'd want to know to become a good chaser. And so hopefully the value proposition is that really just shrinks the time that it takes to become a good chaser. And then in addition to that, right now, I'm offering community membership unlimited. So basically, I have a community where we have people come in and they can ask me questions. They can post their reports. And then we also have a monthly webinar where I kind of dive back into the course material and we go deeper. And we've recently started doing something that I think we're going to keep going, which is basically a chase forecast challenge. So what it amounts to is now that you've taken the course, you want to apply your knowledge, you have a chance to try to, basically with these dateless weather charts, try to figure out where your storm where the storm is going to be, and I have a process for following that. And so then, I'm giving the people in my community a little prize at the end if they win it. And so it's just kind of a fun way to gamify like becoming a good storm chaser. And the hope is like honestly, like my hope is that by next year, the people who are in the course now won't need me. And so they'll just be, okay, got it. Right. So, but some of that needs some, you need a little bit of extra help with that. So yeah. And, if you're interested in the course, like in the details and the pricing and all that stuff, you just go to gabegarfield.com.
Amazing. When Gabe and I started chasing, we had a lot like in 2011, like if something like this existed, that we could have like pooled our resources to gain access to, like it would have saved us
eaten it up.
years. It would have saved us years. It's so awesome. It's just wonderful that you're providing this for people and the community as well. Like that's so important too, because storm chasing can be a lonely hobby, like it's, especially if in the place you're at, like you're the one weather freak in your area, so that's really wonderful that you're providing that, and what an amazing thing that you're giving to us in your newsletter and in this Tornado Chaser Transformation course. So that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for putting that in the world.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I also saw on your site too that you provide a cool free guide as well about protecting your storm images and video. Something we had to learn kind of the hard way in some ways. Tell us about that free resource for people to check out as well.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, so it's again gabegarfield.com, and I don't remember exactly what the link is listed as, but it's pretty. Obviously, it's like a weather guide or a media guide or something to that effect.
Too.
You can link it in the show notes. Perfect. So basically, it's part of my course, to be honest, and something that I just wanted to give out. I haven't really advertised it much, but I spent a lot of work trying to just discern what the best practices are for, video and media that you might sell to news companies and that sort of thing. Because I think that's, you see, let's say in Twitter, right? You see people get these great videos who maybe are not chasers. And then you've got like the video aggregators or whoever say, hey, can I use your video with credit to you? And I'm like, that stinks, because like that video is awesome. And if you only knew like how valuable that, it can be $5,000, $10,000 video, maybe more. And they're giving it away for free. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if only they knew. And so I haven't actually executed on this to the extent that I want to, but I really was hoping to send that out to folks. Like literally you can link it up underneath their beautiful video and say, here's a guide for you to know what to do now.
Nice.
So that you can, not lose out on thousands of dollars. So that was kind of like my gift to the world at large.
That's amazing. That's such a valuable resource too. I hope so many people are taking advantage of that, because it's people will give their stuff. I remember my first tornado video. We were talking before the show started. My first tornado in Jacksonville, and CNN asked if they could use it, and I was like, "Oh, I'll have video on CNN," and I didn't realize it had any value, and I just gave it to him. And now, in hindsight, I did that several times before I learned my lesson. And no, you put in a lot of time and a lot of energy into chasing. Like that has worth. It has value, and they have the money to pay for it.
100%. And it's something that you wouldn't necessarily know if you're not in chasing, but even if you're in chasing, it can be very intimidating to think through how do I term this? I don't know what terms there are. And that guide kind of goes through the terms that you can kind of think through and what you might say in those negotiations. And honestly, I think the best advice I'd give on that, and I don't know, I'm not an expert on this. This is just what I've gathered and kind of what I've experienced personally, is I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to hardball organizations unless you really want to protect your video and go, quote something. I think the best technique is sometimes to ask, what would you like to offer? And let them be the
What's
first
your
to
budget?
offer. Yeah. Because then they kind of are on the spot to kind of reveal their number. And usually they're not going to say anything different than what they had already budgeted. So then you get the max of whatever you could get.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Great advice.
Thank you so much for joining us, Gabe. Is there anywhere that you'd like to point our listeners towards on the web?
Absolutely. Well, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at WXGabe, Gabe. on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And I also have a YouTube channel as well that I'm at WXGabe on. And then for everything else, you can go to gabegarfield.com.
Awesome. And everything we've talked about on the web, we'll link in show notes, all the videos and the courses and the articles and things like that. So take advantage. Gabe is just an incredible wealth of resources and knowledge. It's really amazing what you're putting out into the world. We're super, super grateful for a voice like yours, Gabe.
Thanks, Jeremy. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was fun talking to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. And thank you for listening to StormReel. Please, if you could rate, review, and subscribe. And if the place you're listening has a little bell or notification tool, hit that tool so you know exactly when the next episode of StormReel releases. We want to thank Orograph for the use of our theme song, Mesmerizing. You can find that awesome song and album streaming everywhere. You can find us on the web and social media at The StormReel and stormreel.com. For StormReel, I have been Jeremy Hamann, joined by Gabe Cox. We'll talk soon.